And here we go again. A warm welcome in a very, very warm afternoon. So, guys, here we are. I hope you are not somewhere swimming and enjoying cold water because it's hot. And I hope you are still with us. A warm welcome to Magdalena Oraszczanin. Nice to have you here. And we are going to discuss several hot AI and HR topics. First, I would like to say, did I meet Magdalena? We met at the book celebration of Eduardo dos Santos Silva. And we started to have a very good chat. And then I said to myself, this is an interesting guest. So let's invite Magdalena for a LinkedIn Live. And Magdalena, could you please shortly introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what's your past, and then we jump into our questions.
I'm very happy to do that. So hello, everyone, and thank you, Václav, for having me here in this live. I have to say that in the beginning, I was thinking, oh my God, who is going to join? Because it's so hot. And I would rather be at the swimming pool. But I hope that we can make this a very interesting discussion today. So yeah, my name is Magdalena Oraszczanin, and I'm the founder of Magnate AI. And what I basically do is that I train and consult companies, especially HR teams, on how to use AI in their daily workflows and in the use cases. And, I just help them to solve and basically free up their time, the time of HR professionals, to really focus on what matters most, which is the people. And it's very exciting because I have been in HR for the past 12 years and I've had several roles. I started after university, I started in recruitment, then I moved up in different HR functions. And in my last role, I was an HR director for Central Europe. And when the whole thing with AI started, I really thought, okay, I don't have any technical background, but how and where could I add value? And then I thought, we actually need domain experts. And that's how I founded my company, how I started to do what I'm doing. And I have to say that I absolutely love what I do for the past 2 years. And it's exploding, especially in the field of HR. There is a lot. We will speak about it today. It's not only recruitment, it's not only performance reviews, and for sure, it's not only payroll. There is much more to it.
Mm-hmm. When we discussed how are we going to name the baby, there came the question with unlearning. And then I was like, why should we unlearn something? Shouldn't we learn something first? But you made a good point. So let's start with the unlearning. So many companies have absolutely outdated assumptions which they hold about their employees. So what did they need to unlearn first?
Well, that's one of my favorite questions, actually. But the thing about unlearning is basically it's our mindset, right? And as human beings, so I have a background in psychology, and as human beings, we tend to like to be in the comfort zone. And you know this for sure, Václav, because you are coaching people and that's what you push them for, right? To leave their comfort zone. If we learn something and we kind of feel safe and secure and comfortable with what we have learned, we tend to stick to this type of process, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not only for our own habits, but it's also for, let's say, organizational structures, workforce structures, processes, basically everything. It's like, okay, I have always done it this way. Why should I change it? But now with AI coming in the game, we obviously have to change everything, because if we keep on doing what we are doing, then there is no point in actually AI adding to it. And one of the biggest assumptions here is that roles must stay as they are, and that people should basically fit into a static job description. But to be honest, AI doesn't care about any org chart. AI is something that is optimizing for outcomes. So when companies start to assume that tech adoption is an IT issue, but actually it's a workforce design challenge. And we keep on hearing this all the time, right? AI is going to take my job, etc. We will also speak about this further on, but we really need to unlearn the fact and the idea that AI is going to replace jobs. Instead, it's going to reshape them. So today I really want to focus on this reshaping and how we can basically change the workforce and what we have to do in terms of workforce design.
I see there are like two scenarios. One scenario is like the rabbit sitting in front of a snake, and company like are frozen, and we should do something, but we don't know how, and they are basically stuck. That's the one. Second scenario, that people simply jump into it. Let's implement AI without thinking about how their teams perform and so on. So what are the biggest risks if you jump into implementation of AI without rethinking the teams and talent structure?
So that's what I see basically all the time when I get called in to do a training or a workshop on this topic, and what I usually start with is to analyze the current situation. While when I come in, people expect me to start talking about tools, and you end up with tools that don't align at all with any of your workflows. So you also end up with teams that resist change. Again, this is the mindset topic, right? And then you have AI initiatives that fail. And then we see all those, headlines saying nothing is moving beyond the state of AI pilots, etc. Well, of course it's not, because it's like putting like smart tech on top of a broken foundation. And if you do not redesign the role, the responsibility, and the whole collaboration model, it will just feel like a threat. It won't feel like a solution that you are adding. And this is it. I mean, no one wants to do the heavy lifting. So companies calling in trainers, consultants, AI engineers, and saying, okay, come up with a solution. Show us the tools. Show us what we can do. We just want this to be automated. Yeah. Okay, let's pause here for a second. And let's first of all reflect on what are your current processes? What are your current roles? How are you currently collaborating? These are all the things that we have to take into account and to look at before we do anything in terms of AI adoption. And obviously speaking about the whole ethical part, which is a whole different story, but which is very, very important and crucial, obviously. And it all starts with the talent, right?
So if you come in a company in a situation like that, so where do you see the bigger disconnect? Is it the leadership team or is it the workforce? Are they both? How is it? Because I see a lot of people completely scared. This is like going to destroy me. I see AI trainers getting threats on social media that, like in the old days when the factory workers destroyed machinery. So how do you see it? If you come here like a typical client, because sometimes I see individuals are highly open and would do something, pushing for that. The management is putting a brake on it. How do you see it? Can you give some typical example?
Yes, absolutely. So usually it's like this. So the leadership team has decided they want to go for AI, and there has been no communication at all to the workforce. And I think you remember during the time when you were employed, and I also remember when I was employed, just suddenly you receive an email, this is your next training. It's mandatory, right? Like all the trainings that you have in a company. And usually when I come there, the workforce is like, they are sitting there out of fear. I'm dramatizing it a little bit, right? Obviously, there are also some people that are super excited about it, etc. But most of the time, just to give you an idea of the differences, the leadership team simply decides on it without actually having any strategy in place. They just say, we have to jump on it because everyone else is doing it. And then they call me in, I go there, and the people from the HR team sitting there looking at me like, okay, we have actually no idea what's happening today. And then first I start with the question asking, do you know why you are doing this training today? And they say either no, or we think it's going to be easier for us to work in HR. We have to do less admin work. And when I start to ask about their processes and about their current workflows, it's always a big surprise because that's not what they have expected. As I said, they expect me to come in and say, this is me, I know how to do it, and here is your solution, there you go. But it's not the way how it works. And I think it's both, it's the leadership team and it's also the workforce. The leadership team just feels like they are in the driver's seat and they want to make things happen. So usually if I discuss with someone, it's either the chief HR officer or it's the CFO, because he's the one that is in charge of the budget, right?
So how should companies rethink their roles and responsibilities or processes when they would like to implement AI? Because as you elaborated clearly, you cannot fix with a tool a broken process. I've been through several very, very highly complex reorganization rounds and optimization and lean and process-oriented organization and stuff like that. And it was all the time tough, and it was all the time at the end about the change control, about explaining the people, hey, you are not going to lose the job. We are going to do the same stuff, but in a different, more efficient way. Let's have a look what it's in for us, and going like that. So what should they do first? So what would be the first step?
So basically, it's not about, when we're talking about talent and about roles and the whole definition, it's not about, no longer about what someone knows, but we are more looking on the side, how adaptable, curious, and AI literate are these people in our company. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when I say AI literate, there has to be AI trainings involved, but how adaptable are they? How curious are they? How much are they willing to experiment? And on the leadership team side, how much are they actually willing to take a risk? And if I say risk, I obviously mean calculated risk, right? We're not going to do things that will basically hurt how the company looks like, or that will have a huge financial impact. But if we're speaking about a high performer today, this person is not executing tasks anymore. So in the future, we're not there yet, but in the very close future, we are talking about someone who is collaborating with AI and who is actually able to ask better questions and who is continuously upskilling. So speaking about talent today and about how to design roles is really, it includes human intelligence and machine fluency. And I know that many people are super scared of it, but that's what I always say. I don't have a technical background, and I am able to train you on this topic. And when I come in, usually after the first hour, the people feel like, wow, actually it's possible for me. Mm-hmm. It is possible for me, and I can do this. They simply need someone who is possible to explain it in a way without, technical jargon, without all of these fancy, words out there, just in a simply plain language. And most important, show them use case by use case.
Yeah, and we have some comments. And sorry, I missed it because I don't see them popping up. I get some very, very small red notification. So Steve Dorvert, artificial intelligence started in 1940s. Generative artificial intelligence was around well before OpenAI and GPT. Please unlearn using AI to mean a very specific lens. Use case. Yes, thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely, Steve. And I mean, I couldn't agree more on this. This is exactly also the way how I started. I started with specific use cases.
Okay, I'm reading this loud out because thanks for the next comment, Steve, because I know that a lot of people are doing their fitness and listening to the LinkedIn Live. So in HR technology, then IBM, SAP, and Workday have been enabled with robotic process automation and machine learning since 2018. I work with them on their pilot. So when you say AI, you need to be very clear on what type of synthetic knowledge capability you are talking about. If you can define, then you need to pause and unlearn. Do not assume everybody knows what AI means. An HR department for a pig farmer doesn't instantly think artificial intelligence. It's artificial something else. Very good one. Thank you very much.
I love this. I love this, Steve. And this is so true, right? I mean, first of all, the term, we all say AI, but AI means basically nothing. It means, artificial intelligence. And there are so many different types of models and systems and tools out there. So obviously, yeah, it depends on what system you want to use with it. Can it integrate? Are there the APIs that can integrate, etc.? But this is a whole, technical talk, I would say, that we would kick off here. But Steve is absolutely right. We need to define first what you actually need. And that's what we do when we come in and do the training. And again, talking about the roles and responsibilities, companies really need to map the tasks. that they want to be augmented versus fully automated, because this is a huge difference, right? Yeah. What do you want to fully automate, and where do you still need to have human in the loop? And then you need to redesign the roles around a higher value work, like decision making, empathy, innovation. For example, if AI is handling the sourcing and recruitment, I'm not saying screening, I'm saying sourcing. It's a big difference, because I know if some people are not a fan of this, me neither, by the way, I'm not a fan of AI screening, but I say sourcing in recruitment. So if the AI is focusing on the sourcing, then the recruiter can focus on the candidate experience and strategic hiring, right? Because we know how recruiters simply don't have enough time to do it. And in this case, we are not going to eliminate those roles, but we just want to elevate them and to bring them on a higher level.
Tell me, Magdalena, if I am a business leader and would like train my workforce and I have no idea where to start, so what should I do?
So basically, you should start small and you should start now. Because what I see is that companies are coming back to me, after 1 year, they said, oh, we will look at it and maybe we start next year, etc. And now they figure out, okay, there is a huge gap, because 12 months is a long period, right? And the most important thing is actually to start now, as of now, with a super small use case. For example, in HR, writing job descriptions. You can do it with any LLM, right? It takes a few seconds, a few minutes. Obviously, you want to adapt it, also the wording, etc. This is a very, very small use case. Or something that no one even thinks about in HR, transcription tools. There are AI transcription tools that you can use when you are interviewing a candidate. So we all know how it is. You sit in the interview and you want to focus on the candidate, but you have your notes, you have your questions, and you want to write down what the candidate is saying, because after you need to write a whole text about it, and etc., to give it to the hiring manager. There are AI transcription tools out there. You can easily use them, right? Obviously, before you do, you always need to get the consent from the candidate. But out of my experience, candidates are very happy to have the transcription tool inside the interview, because it also feels a bit more relaxing for them, right? And introduce practical AI use cases in your existing workflow. So don't start like, I want to start using AI and I will now do something completely new and something completely different. Yeah. You can also ask your team to experiment in terms of explore tools. One very important thing to mention is that so many of your employees are already using AI, even if it is only ChatGPT and companies have no clue about it. Let them. Let them, but I want to say, in terms of privacy, because I see the comment as well, it's so important to raise awareness here, talking about transparency, speaking of personal information. Don't put any personal information into LLMs, for example, right? If we're talking about CVs and you want to have a summary of several CVs, you can copy paste the CV with the about and the experience section, leaving out the personal information and the address.
Exactly. I'm doing exactly the same, because in the past I spent like an hour to do a person a new LinkedIn profile. Today, I get the CV, I remove all the data which could be connected to the person directly and upload it. And I did 5 LinkedIn profiles in 10 minutes to people at Novartis, and people have been like staring at me, wow. And I said, what have you been doing this last 2 years? Like, it's unbelievable, but this is a very, very important part. So never upload anything which can connect you to or your client to LLM. All anonymize it all the time, because we shouldn't. And people are sometimes not thinking about it at all. That it was just uploaded, because you never know what's going to happen with those data at the end.
Exactly. You never know. And I mean, I see the comment talking about privacy when training HR teams. So this is something that we are talking about. Speaking of ethical HR, ethical AI, this is a big pillar, obviously, that I use in my trainings as well. But for example, in ChatGPT, there is an option where you can turn off that your data is used to train the LLM. So this is definitely something that you also should think about.
Yeah. But you know how it is. This is like the LinkedIn settings. Nobody watches it. Nobody goes there. Nobody looks in your settings how many data you are sharing freely with LinkedIn just to get some stupid advertisement. That's the complacency. We have a tool, hurrah, hurrah, it makes my life easy. But there is a risk on the other side that we get constantly more and more stupid because our brains are relying on AI and we don't do this sweaty job anymore in a lot of cases. I'm really curious how this is going to develop in the long term. But all the time, important to have some real examples, success cases. So could you share some example of a really great success when a company transformed or improved from? You should for sure have, because that you wouldn't be on the market if you wouldn't have a success story. So tell us.
Yes, obviously. So I have a few, but just to give you an example. So one of my clients in the healthcare industry, it's quite a big company. They wanted to redesign their referral program. Basically, they had a referral program, but everything was like very, very manual. And being a global company in hundreds of countries, it's not working very well. So they decided to, redesign the referral program using AI, and instead of manually tracking and validating all of the internal referrals, they used AI to analyze internal networks and also to suggest matches. So basically, skill mapping inside, etc. But it didn't stop at a tool, because they also redefined on top of that the role for the recruiters. So the recruiter's role was basically, also to train the recruitment managers on how to use the data for internal mobility, for example, and how to align on initiatives. And the key here was really involving the people. It was involving the people from the very beginning, because as we spoke about the leadership team, we just say leadership team, it can be the board or whatever, but we just stick to the term. If you do not involve the people, you actually don't know what's really happening, right? And the processes. And this healthcare company, they made it very, very clear that it was important to them to involve the whole recruitment team and to have all the diverse voices set up. Also, when we're talking about bias, etc. Again, another big topic. Obviously, there's always going to be bias because the data comes from humans and humans are biased. But at least we can try to have less bias.
Yeah, and this let's say directly to the role of culture, and which role does culture play in implementation of AI into your processes. And this is a topic which is very close to my heart, because I was all the time very convinced that a great culture is really important, that the teams are more motivated, people get more done if they have a right supportive culture. How do you see this? So what does which role does a culture play in the implementation of AI?
I would say it plays a massive role, and actually one of the most important roles, because you also know this, Václav, there are companies out there that kind of punish experimentation, They point it like you are not knowing something if you are experimenting with something. And basically, AI will simply fail because you are not leaving any room for innovation, for experimenting, right? So teams really need kind of psychological safety to test things, to learn, and also to fail forward, because obviously you will fail in whatever you start with. There is a certain type of failure in the process, which is also good because you are learning from that. And if the company culture allows that, then it has a huge role in the whole AI adoption process. Again, we are talking about the mindset. The culture in the end really sets the tone. So is AI something that we are going to fear or something that we want to collaborate with? We really need to follow this mindset. That's why it's so important to have the right culture.
I think we need both. We need to be vigilant and careful about it, but not to be scared, because it's definitely not the AI who takes my job away, even if they are fantastic career consulting tools already. You can even very, very simple train your job interview with Google Live Studio at Live. I was doing QA for 12 years in big pharma companies. I asked, could you please prepare me for a job interview in a position of a senior QA manager at Novartis? And this stupid Google Live Studio gave me such a hard time, just bombing me with questions, and you come exactly in the mode. This doesn't mean that it will review you the way as a human being, but you get the training mode that somebody gives you unprepared questions. And this is already fantastic. You cannot expect that it will analyze, not yet. There are for sure tools now that analyze your micro expression, facial expression, body language, everything all together. There are tools like that, but they cost a lot of money. But Google Live Studio, crazy how efficient it is. So I'm not scared. I think AI does me a favor. I spend much less time on boring stuff, and I can work deeper with the people, which is great. Good. So what is the one thing which every organization should do this quarter? What do they to start to future-proof their workforce? What should it be now?
So I would run an AI readiness check, pulse check, right? So we have these pulse surveys out there. They are out for years, for decades, right? So companies are doing them and they're always trying, to be honest, I mean, many companies will hate me now, but I'm not sure what they actually want to achieve with those pulse surveys. Instead, I would really do a pulse check on basically the AI readiness and also kind of to catch the sentiment, to catch the feeling of the employees. We were talking about fear, right? So when I'm talking about this AI readiness check, I'm not talking about the skills that the people have, but really the mindset. So does your team actually know what AI is? We had the comment from Steve, for example, where he was talking about AI and the differences of AI. Does your team ever hear the term AI, generative AI? Has it ever heard from it? Are they using any type of AI? Do they see opportunities there? Do they have their own ideas? Oh, this is one workflow. Maybe this could be automated with AI. Do you have enough data? What about our data? Who's going to take care of the data? What about the safety? What about the policies? All of these things could be kind of sensed, in this pulse check. So whatever we are talking about training or change management or role redesign, it's really, we shouldn't wait for the perfect strategy. We need to kind of get the feeling, where are our people at, and then start from there and start now.
So you will start, and did you have already such task like that you come in the company and start like measure the literacy, the AI literacy of the people? How do you do it? Do you have like sort of just questionnaires, or how do you go about it? Or do you making interviews with the leadership team or with the entire people? I would be really interested. How does it look like in a particular way?
So it depends on the size of the team that I'm training, right? So if it's a smaller team, for example, then I always send out some pre-work, like some questionnaires. And then I also, ask exactly those things that we were discussing, just to kind of catch, okay, what is the level of those people? And I usually ask what tools they have already worked with, tested, etc. And if most of the people answer they only know about ChatGPT, then I kind of know where I can, where I should start my training with. But obviously, there are also bigger teams from like enterprises, global multinational companies that are saying, okay, we have worked with tool XYZ already. We have had this or that implementation. And then the training looks completely different, because then we are moving, for example, into automation, and we are speaking about other topics, or we are really speaking about very deep, like legal aspects, ethical aspects. So I always send out like a pre-questionnaire and like a little pre-work that they do before I actually tailor my training for the team, because I cannot give the same training to every team. It wouldn't make any sense. I mean, I have teams where we have 4 HR people versus where we have 70.
Yeah, so and globally spread over continents. That's a different story as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So, we're talking a lot about the so-called quote-unquote AI literacy. Is it something which should be like a core competence for everyone, or just for selected employees? How do you see this?
For everyone. Basically, this is something we're talking for everyone. If we think about the normal classical CV from the past years, what does every single person write when it comes to IT skills or other skills? One thing that everyone writes is Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone has it. Everyone. I don't know if in the past 12 years I've ever seen a CV where someone doesn't say I know about Microsoft Office. So basically everyone knows it. And it's the same with AI literacy. And if we say AI literacy, again, it doesn't mean you need to be an engineer. You need to know how to code. You need to know how to build AI agents on different platforms, etc. No. it is, you are curious, you are experimenting, you have had already the first steps, you are moving into this direction. If someone shows you a use case, you can kind of understand how the procedure goes. So this is what AI literacy means, that you are moving into the direction of understanding it. And the next step would actually be AI fluency, I would say. I think then we are moving from literacy to fluency, and fluency is really kind of, being more of the advanced person. So someone who is maybe in between, something intermediate maybe. But this is definitely something that is going to be super important for the future. And also, I mean, speaking to candidates and people that are looking for a job, what I always say them is invest the time that you have now and learn whatever you can about AI, Gen AI, about automation. Pick something you are interested in and just learn it by yourself.
There are so many free courses
I
online.
wanted to say the same thing. Yes.
One of my clients said, if the course sucks after 5 minutes, I don't like it, I look for something else because I learned yeah.
Exactly. It has never been easier. It has never been easier to learn something actually today, and you can experiment in so many ways. And one thing I really encourage people to, so I'm specialized in HR, but I always say, become a domain expert. Become the domain. If you're working in finance and marketing, in operations, really use your area, your domain area of expertise, and use the use cases out of your domain expertise to become the AI champion in your company. And AI champion, again, doesn't mean you need to understand everything, but you could be the one in your team where people tend to come and ask questions. And this is actually, this is basically how the futures look like.
That's exactly what my dad was telling me. In every new position, make yourself indispensable as soon as possible, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't train people and should hide information, but make yourself the go-to person when people would like to see something. I remember one of my old colleagues in Novartis, and he was from Alsace and trained as a baker. And he came to the company, and we had to implement Microsoft project, and he learned himself Microsoft project from the YouTube videos in such a way that he was more fluent than the official Microsoft trainers. And he has a craft, a baker. So no university, no high school, nothing, but he was smarter than me, basically, in abstract thinking. So it's at the end all the time about the willingness to learn. And those people could be easily champions because they are not scared. They simply try and trial and error. Let's have a look what happens. This is very important. At the end, it's everything about fears. And I know from my old corporate days, all the time there is something new. There is a reorganization. It's all the time, I'm going to lose my job. And that's the first thing. And still all the people are still there today, 20 years later. Nobody got fired. They are still all there, but everybody was scared like 5 times that they are going to lose their jobs. Yes, some jobs has been transferred, that's for sure. But in my old department, everybody was scared. The people are still all there. So how do you, if you come to an organization and you face a resistance and fears, how do you handle it?
Most important is really the communication, and it is being transparent, right? So that's also what I say to companies. I mean, not to the workforce. That's a topic where the leadership team needs to come in. I cannot come in as an external trainer and then decide how are the roles going to change and what you are going to do in your company. But I always say that transparency is definitely the key. So are your employees even aware of that you are starting to use AI? And are they even aware of, what we discussed earlier? You have sent out, okay, there is a training coming up. Why not communicating this up front? You for sure have a town hall. You have a Slack channel. You have any type of communication in your company. You can use it to be transparent. And then there is, of course, all this oversight and bias topic and all the ethics coming up. It's so important, again, to encourage the people saying, hey, experimentation over perfection. We really value a culture of learning instead of fixed expertise. And we want you to collaborate, to think collaboration instead of silos. So opening up the mind. And whenever they are talking about losing a role, this is actually the worst part, and I see it so much on LinkedIn saying all the junior roles, they will disappear, etc. So if we don't have a junior, how are we going to be able to have a senior actually? Because they are roles that involve pattern recognition, decision making, communication, people leadership, and those roles, they cannot simply disappear. Who is going to lead those people? Who's going to recognize patterns? Who's going to make the decision? It's not going to be an AI agent, at least not now.
Hopefully not now, because that's
exactly
completely wrong.
I mean, once I was asking ChatGPT what the HR function might look like in 50 years and then in 100 years from now. And it's basically that HR will not only oversee humans, but also robots.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it said to me. And I think, there is something realistic in it. And if we are thinking about employees should really focus on AI collaboration, not competition. That's what I always like to say in my trainings, because if you think you are competing with the AI, so there are some types of people out there, they try to be better than the AI and they try to compete. That's not a good idea because you should rather collaborate, and you really need to start with the basics. Learn how to prompt, learn how to interpret the outputs, and apply AI insights in your day-to-day. Be curious, adapt certain scenarios, just create this type of, again, fluency that we were talking about. And it's not about technical skills, not at all. It's really more about how to, when we're talking about LLMs, so generative AI, talking to a large language model, you need to understand how to prompt it. And if you say, oh, the output is bad, then your input was bad. That's it. It's simple as that.
Or the LLM was trained on a bad data set, which is possible as well. Huh?
I mean, this is a whole other story. When I come in and the company wants to build an AI solution, I'm not doing this myself. I'm partnering with AI engineers. But then we start to collect the data, and the data is not good, or it doesn't exist, or it's completely biased. And we say, okay, you need to first do a data audit, etc. No one wants to do the heavy lifting. They basically expect you to come in and to present a solution, but it's not the way it works. You need to clean your house first.
Mm-hmm. This is the most difficult part. I see parallels to career consulting. When the person doesn't know the direction in which they would like to go, this is really the hard part. This Absolutely. Is really sometimes torturing them for several meetings with questions. Sometimes I really hate it. The moment we know that's the direction, the rest is routine, because that's normal. That's a machine which is running. Do you have any particularly cool example of a person who positively championed AI or did a massive impact on the organization, specifically person from which you won't expect it?
I have several, and I'm so thankful to have that, because that shows that there are still, people out there that shows that it's not true what is on all these, interesting LinkedIn hooks, like you're going to lose your job and everyone fears it. I mean, there are so many people in my trainings and workshops that just come, in front and say, oh, but I was doing this, for example, I tried that, and I have had this use case, and I have simply applied this, and this worked out. And then they seem to be like super excited. And then they come and they say, how can we make the output even better? So you can really feel the excitement, but at the same time, you can also feel the strategic thinking, because they're not thinking one step ahead, but already like 2 steps ahead. For example, I had once this fantastic HR lady. She's an HR business partner, and she was completely frustrated with the whole performance review. It's also one of my favorite topics.
Don't tell me.
Oh, God. Yeah. I spoke to Eduardo the other day about it. I think we need to completely rethink performance reviews. And that's what she did. So basically, she had the idea of making it like completely personalized, not sticking to any type of, rigid processes and workflows that we have, and make it very, very individual to every person, because she said our team is so diverse. I cannot have this process the same way with every single person. Mm-hmm. And we were able to figure it out, right? I mean, helping with the help of AI, we were able to figure it out, talking about this hyper-personalization, talking about also training and development, talent development. Everything can be super, super personalized. It simply wouldn't be possible without AI. Because imagine how many people you would need to hire. You would need to have one HR person for basically every employee in the company to create very, very individual plans. That's not possible, right? And
I,
with AI, we can do it.
I saw once an amazing solution, and it was years before ChatGPT and all these tools popped up. And this is a software created in Czechia, which is called Luther One. And Luther One is like an inner company Facebook where people can give each other performance review constantly. Immediately they do it openly or anonymous. This is and such a freaking lovely tool. You love using it because it's really cool. I will go then, we have a LinkedIn live, and after that, hey Magdalena, this was cool, this was cool, this was not that cool, boom, and then you have it because the feedback has to come immediately. And this horror, like having it twice or once a year and then calibrating the people against each other and then bring them under the normal distribution, there's so much time wasted on a shit.
Yeah, I know. It's completely time waste. And I mean, it's really trying to, everyone has to fit exactly in the same form, which is just not happening. I mean, it's not happening, but this is something that where we can really use AI for good. So we can personalize a lot of things. And I think this is especially a great use case in HR.
Unbelievable. We are discussing for 41 minutes, and I have the feeling we could go ahead for another 30, which is all the time a good sign. I'm all the time then curious how we kept our people engaged. You see it then in the statistic, how many people he had and how many them been leaving. I will share this with you as a feedback. And yeah, we need to drive it home slowly. So let's make some slide looking ahead. So how in 3 or 5 years would the optimal HR department of a company look like?
Well, I think it will be flat, agile, and outcome focused, and it will be very much focused on the humans. And I also think that job titles will be completely flexible. So we will move away from the classic job titles that we know so far. Teams will be formed around projects and not departments, which already is starting to be the case, right? I can see this in a lot of companies. This is a fantastic trend that I perfectly love. And AI is going to handle repetitive tasks, all the predictive tasks, and humans will focus really on, creativity, connection, problem solving. And when I say connection, I really mean like the human connection, because I remember in my time being an HR director for 4,000 people, I wish I would have much more time to connect with each and every individual. Yeah. And this is something that we will have once we kind of start, embracing all of this AI into our HR department. And the culture, so basically the companies that want to be successful, they will create a culture of trust, learning, experimentation, and they will treat AI as a team member. That's how I see it. It will be like a full team member also in the HR department and not a threat. So I hope in 3 to 5 years from now, we will not fear it anymore. And organizations that are building something to adapt and not only to optimize. So this is how the workforce will change, how HR will change. We don't know how it will exactly look like, but that's something what I expect it to look like. And I think the HR function will finally come back to human resources truly, because for now, it has only been the title. Yeah. And and another thing for HR, we have so much data. We have so much data in the HR department, but for years, no one would look at this data, or at least would not use this data in a way to interpret it for predicting something.
Yeah, and this is exactly what this tool is doing. The tool is can predict based on the intercompany communication that the company is hitting the wall. Yeah, because the people communicating freely and they build a trust with the system, they realize what is the voice of the people, which is crazy that we need a tool like that to have an open communication. It's but that's the way it is.
Maybe it will make us more human. Who knows?
I hope so. I tell the people all the time, use AI, but stay human. That's the way it is. AI doesn't kill our job. It will make the job a little bit different. And thank you so much for being my guest, because we are in the 45th minute and I have soon another call. Thank you much being here for the open and really engaging discussion. And thank you, our listeners, and hope to see you next time I will talk something about executive job search and career consulting next week, I think this time in German. So thank you, Magdalena.
Fantastic.
Can you please stay in the studio? I'm going to close the stream.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.